Hey guys, what's up? Murphy's Opinions here, and today I'm coming at you with my review of Diamonds Are Forever, which is made in 1971 and directed by Guy Hamilton, who also directed Goldfinger. And one thing I find interesting about this film is you can clearly tell they're trying to recapture the success and kind of magic of Goldfinger by bringing back the director of Goldfinger and also Shirley Bassey, who sang the main title song for Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever. So that's just something I thought was quite interesting about the film. Anyway, on to the plot. The plot sees James Bond in the opening title sequence go after and kill Blofeld for the events of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which are never actually fully mentioned in this film, which I found kind of interesting because I know there was fallout between Lazenby and the kind of the Broccolis and stuff, but I do think they really should have brought up properly the events of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But anyway, we'll get onto that in a minute. So after that, Bond returns. But straight away, there's another case waiting for him. And a large amount of diamonds have been stolen from the South African mines, and two assassins are killing everyone and smuggling them in one by one. Bond has to go undercover as Peter Franks, a diamond smuggler, and he uses this to kind of team up with Tiffany Case, who wants to smuggle the diamonds also. Obviously, Bond's not actually going to, but he pretends he's in on it. But what Bond discovers shocks him. The head of the kind of smuggling ring is Blofeld, who actually never died, but in fact it was a copy, as Blofeld had many people, like, not clones, but people like disguised as him. So it was a fake and not the real Blofeld who died. Now Bond must survive the assassination attempts of Mr. Kidd and prevent Blofeld from going through with his plan and uncover his sinister plot. Now let's take a look at the cast of the film. So we have Sean Connery playing James Bond, returning after You Only Live Twice, and while I will say his performance is better this time round than You Only Live Twice, it's nowhere near up to the standards of, say, his first four films. I think mainly just due to the fact Connery was a lot older. I mean, he is having a lot more fun in the role than he was in his previous film, but again, that's not really saying much. So, again, not a terrible Bond performance, but just sort of a lot to be desired, really. Then you've got Jill St. John as Tiffany Case, who it's an interesting Bond girl because her character changes like halfway through the film. Like, you know, she starts with being quite a strong, independent woman in the first half, not really taking much shit from anyone, and then she kind of, you know, develops into this kind of, you know, character just for comedy, and I just don't really think towards the end she just becomes useless, and I think it's a real shame. She had potential to be a very good Bond girl, but they ultimately squandered it towards the end of the film, because I think they just tried to play her for laughs towards the end, which is just silly in my opinion. You've got Charles Gray as Blofeld, who I think nowhere near as good as you know, Pleasance or Savalas, but he's still good. He's a lot of fun for what he is. He works in this film, I think. You can tell Charles Gray's having a lot of fun in the role as Blofeld, and there are some elements of Blofeld, you know, in Gray's performance, like the kind of, as soon as things start going wrong, he just tries to escape, which, you know, is classic Blofeld, really. But it's weird seeing him in Blofeld in drag. I'm not huge on seeing that, but you know, for what it is, the Gray does a good job. He's definitely better than Waltz, who I'll talk about in my Spectre review. Lana Wood plays Plenty O'Toole, really only just used for the joke of, oh hi, I'm Plenty. Well, of course you are, Plenty O'Toole, named after your father perhaps. I think that's the main reason she's in the film. She doesn't really do that much, really, aside from that. But then you've got Bruce Glover as Mr. Wint and Pud Smith as Mr. Kidd, who are two gay assassins. On paper that sounds like it just would be terrible, but these two really make it work, I think. You know, they come across as quite sinister and actually quite intimidating as well. And I think that's really due to just the strength in acting ability by Glover and Smith. Because I think if you put in a weaker actor or someone who didn't have as much experience, these roles would fail epically. But they really make them work, and I do really like these assassins. They may actually make my top 10 in terms of Bond henchmen, but I'm not 100% sure, but they definitely come to mind. M, played by Bernard Lee, is great once again, along with Q, played by Desmond Llewellyn. Moneypenny as well has a great scene with Connery in this. Definitely one of the best Bond Moneypenny scenes in the series so far. I think it's just, you know, Connery and Lois Maxwell always sort of had great chemistry in these early Bond films. Unfortunately, Norman Burton, who plays Felix Leiter, is just pretty boring. I just think unfortunately, I think with Felix Leiter, they really should have had the character try to be played by less people. Maybe, like, I understand, like, it was never going to be someone playing Felix all the time, but try and have, you know, less people play Felix and not a new person every film. Because Norman Burton, in my opinion, just doesn't really his Felix doesn't have much character. He's just very boring, which is a real shame. Because I think the Felix Leiter character can be really interesting when played well. Unfortunately, he's not in this film, which is a real shame. The score is once again done by John Barry, who does another pretty good job. It's one the thing with Diamonds Are Forever. It's one of those scores where, a bit like You Only Live Twice, I don't really remember it that well. It's not very memorable, but I will say the opening title song is definitely memorable and iconic. Diamonds Are Forever by Shirley Bassey. Easily her best song in the Bond series. I much prefer it to Goldfinger. I do find Goldfinger slightly overrated personally. But, you know, I think with Diamonds Are Forever, it's one of those things where ultimately, you know, the film kind of gets a lot of praise because of the song and not necessarily by the actual overall film. Because I think when it comes to Diamonds Are Forever, there's not much. I think they kind of took the wrong direction with it. I think, you know, there is some good stuff in this film. I will say, I think, you know, you've got the chase in Vegas, which is good. The fight in the lift, very reminiscent from Russia with Love, where Bond has to beat up Peter Franks and then steals his identity. But I think my main problem with Diamonds Are Forever is the way they went about it. I think they shouldn't have done a campy adventure. I think they should have done a more serious adventure where Bond wants to hunt down Blofeld for revenge, but he's kind of being told by, you know, M, and, you know, that you can't let personal vendettas get in the way. A bit like License to Kill in a way. But you could go, I think, but obviously don't do the bit where you take his license away, but the kind of conflict of Bond having to, you know, go after Blofeld, but this time it's personal, you know. I think that really could have been a fun and interesting dynamic. But instead they didn't really go that route. But for what it is, Diamonds Are Forever is fair. You know, it's a fairly fun film. Like, you've got, for example, I think while the Blofeld is not the best, he's definitely a fun one. You know, I think, however, the Bond girl doesn't really work in this film, and I think it's one of those Bond films where maybe Roger Moore should have played Bond. Really, I think Connery was too old and at times feels a bit out of place. Whereas I think Roger Moore in this film really would have worked, as he is a Bond in my eyes who suits those more campy adventures. And I think it's one of those films where, for me personally, it's definitely not one of my favourites. I definitely put it into the bottom. I wouldn't say I hate this film, but it's not a film that I love either. It's just sort of, I'd say it's okay, really. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you're a big Connery fan or prefer the more campy Bond adventures. Then maybe this is the film for you. But I personally prefer the more serious ones. But I don't hate Diamonds Are Forever. I think there's some fun aspects to it, just not a personal favourite of mine. I think it was a missed opportunity to make this a real personal film for Bond in his quest to hunt down Blofeld. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give the video a like, subscribe to my main channel, my Twitter, give me a follow on there, follow me on Ars.fm, and thanks for watching, guys.